Okay, so good day. I'll be talking about a journal paper review about water sensitive urban design or WSUDs. I will before I proceed to the actual journal paper, I'll be talking about WSUD for a while. So, what are WSUD or water sensitive urban design? It actually began to be used in Australia in the early 1990s, wherein its original objectives included managing water balance, maintain or where possible enhance water quality, and encourage water conservation. This is to limit the import of potable water. So it means na hindi na maghahanap for a different sources for water within doon na lang sa area. And then as further development happened, it became as the philosophical approach to urban planning and design that aims to minimize the hydrological impacts of urban development on the surrounding environment, which sounds pretty familiar since we've been going back and forth about these in about when we're talking about LIDs. So, in its broadest context, WSUD encompasses all aspects of integrated urban water cycle management, which includes water supply, sewerage, and stormwater management. So, stormwater management is a subset in WSUD. And it's also worth noting that there's two terms involved or intertwined, which is water sensitive city, which is the destination or objective to which the WSUD as a process is implemented on. So next is this is my actual journal citation by Bach. And then before I talk about this one, I want to discuss about the other paper or journal or book that I've seen while looking for this journal. So this is the approaches to water sensitive urban design. It was actually published um, last year, 2019. So this is actually a pretty comprehensive and detailed about what to know about WSUDs. It started from the history, the adoption and commencement of WSUDs in Australia and actually in different countries. While I was skimming through it, I think there were around 27 chapters. I felt like reading a manual because it also tackled about design approaches, or in our terms, which are the LID controls, and then it also tackled about the objectives and goals, design guidelines, and whatnot. There were also several case studies in different countries, such as obviously Australia and New Zealand, the United States, and other European and Asian countries. So, why this journal? First and foremost, Peter Bach is, in my opinion, a prominent author. From the previous assignments that we did, I always see his name always being cited from one research to another research paper. It's probably his name just stuck on me. And then there's the journal highlights, which are these. So they developed and test a spatial algorithm for designing stormwater management infrastructure. They integrated the design of WSUD systems with urban planning. They test the model against an already implemented integrated water management plan of a greenfield site, and, and their model provides a useful method for exploring stakeholder preferences in WSUD planning. So the last the last tab is the which captivated me the most because of the exploring stakeholder preferences. Since hindi lang naman tayo bounded by the design and kung sino yung gagawa, sino mag-i-implement, kailangan pa rin natin i-consider kung sino yung parang magpo-fund or kung sino yung mga interested or sino yung mga masasakupan sa paggawa natin ng um, mga WSUD or LID. And then, as a bit of background about the journal, so the model that I was talking about or the algorithm, they are, which is actually still in development. It's called Urban Biophysical Environments and Technology Simulator or Urban BITS. So um, Urban BITS is a PSS or a planning support systems. PSS can improve greatly the WSUD practices through the organization, analysis, and visualization of spatial data. So and again, it also tackled about the stakeholder engagement by inputting user preferences, which I'll be talking about later. And it's The stakeholder engagement is also the most emphasized part and the most frequent mentioned factor all throughout the paper. So parang doon talaga siya nagpating outputs na ilalabas ng model doon nakabase. And even though na maraming PSS currently, they suffer in three key shortcomings, which are A, link between urban planning and WSUD in most models is weak. They cited such softwares like Music, Swim, and Best. Not that I agree with this because I don't know these programs personally. So my opinion doesn't matter really. The next one is also noteworthy that they mentioned that Swim is um, one of the programs that exists already that integrates this. However, they just mentioned that it is weak. And then majority of the PSS are narrowly scoped, focusing on a single aspect of WSUD planning, a single system type, and application scale, or serving a single purpose. This basically means that for WSUD planning, one of the three questions such as which, where, and how much, isa lang yung sinasagot doon instead of interrelating them. So, which is this quote from their paper, such lack of integration forces decision makers to use different tools for each aspect of WSUD planning, further complicating an already complex planning process. So, medyo ang ganda ng pagkakasabi nila while reading the paper. And lastly is the inability to easily and consistently replicate results can hamper PSS uptake both in science and practice. So para ang point lang nun is um, nahahamper yung bawat labas kasi sa pag-deliver ng mga results and hindi masyado siyang na-validate by the academic community. So what about urban bits? So urban bits, its main key feature is it can size, evaluate, and place WSUD systems into configurations at multiple spatial scales and for different water management objectives formed by planning constraints and stakeholder elicited preferences. So again, na-mention na naman nila yung stakeholder preferences. So yung water management objectives, these are runoff production or volume reduction, which is we're very familiar with. The next is the pollution management, which is just similar to or synonymous to the water quality ones. And rain or stormwater harvesting, achieving a defined supply reliability. So for the purpose of urban bits, um, it's or the purpose of the paper is the development and validation of the urban bits WSUD planning module, the application in a greenfield development with an existing integrated water management strategy. So this existing integrated water management strategy was done by by group of engineers in the Regional Water Authority in Australia or in the target site, which is in Melbourne. Next is train the model against stakeholder preferences validated by comparing outputs with the WSUD scheme designed by the project's engineering consultant. So yun nga yung sinasabi ko kanina lang na may existing ng strategy or scheme na ginawa ng ibang party. And then explore the variety of solutions that the model can provide, which is later on sa results. So this is the framework or on how the program actually works. So sobrang dami niya or sobrang haba niya. And then while I was reading the journal, it was actually tackling each step na masyado siyang technical and marami siyang jargons na parang pang-computer na yung dating. Kasi it's talking about the validation of the program. However, ang pinaka-takeaway ko dito is that from the urban planning module, yung outputs doon, magiging direct input na siya into the WSUD planning module. And then from there, yung output na ilalabas niya, is yun na yung parang paglalaruan ng program. And then doon mamimili, within that, doon mamimili yung mga stakeholders or up for discussions. So as you can see from the bottom, the top X option, so marami siyang ilalabas. Hindi lang siya single best solution na isa lang and then it's done. Ayun. And next one is here. Here's the case study. So the project is in, or the case study is in Two Learn Precinct. is a 24 square kilometer suburban greenfield mixed-use development, has a population of 55,000 and predominantly residential, which is around 44%. Excuse me. So this table, so as you can see, there are two scenarios: the SO scenario, which is the single objective, and the MO scenario, multi-objective. The SO scenario is basically similar with our traditional stormwater management, which is centralized. Unlike the multi-objective, which is the decentralized, which we're all familiar with. So as you can see, dun sa SO scenario, mostly pollution management lang siya or just for the water quality. Unlike for the MO scenario, meron siyang nag-simulate for the stormwater harvesting target. And then there's a level service na kailangan ma-achieve or ma-attain. And then sa spatial scale, mas malawak yung pwedeng masakop ng MO scenario. It's also worth noting or to remember na ang WSUD hinge its success or efficiency on retention or detention types na controls or approaches, which we can see later on sa results. So this is the what I call the success of approach. This is as you can see two top ranking WSUD options for two-learn precinct from SO scenario or single objective scenario. Location of model is in red and compared with the IUWM plan. So IUWM is Integrated Urban Water Management. So yun na yung naka-existing as I've mentioned earlier. So parang pinagsantabi sila para makita kung saan yung magiging location if based dun sa model or if based dun sa plan ng third-party engineer na ginawa. So for the SO scenario, it was found that the model predominantly suggested wetlands, ponds, and biofilters in its final options. So, dahil final options, hindi naman ibig sabihin nun, yan lang yung nilabas. Yan lang yung top two, as mentioned. Yung reason kung bakit wetlands, biofilters, and ponds yung nilabas, kasi daw sa Melbourne, yun yung pinaka widely used WSUD systems. And also, the design of infiltration systems and swales were simulated. However, it wasn't suggested, possibly because of the low on-site infiltration rates. And also, infiltration systems are not traditionally used in Melbourne. And swales are becoming less and less popular because mas malaki yung kinakain yung lupa. So, this one is the alternative, or actually, yun na rin yung parang success eh. Kasi this one is about the MO scenario or the multi-objective scenario. So as I've mentioned na mas efficient for WSUD yung retention-detention approach, you can see na parang pinaulanan na ng tank system or yung rainwater harvesting. So this one is the layout of one top ranking option for considering stakeholder preferences. The position of technology symbols within the block represents the scale of application. And it is so this one is the top 5 layouts for the entire two-learn precinct. And Urban Bits modeled a large number of rain or stormwater tanks at the lot and neighborhood scales, which is very common in Australian cities. Actually, I checked dinaanan ko lang yung Google Maps and parang ang ganda ng mga bahay-bahay nila doon since parang low-rise and then marami nga ring mga vegetations and stuff. And even though biofilters can be used for stormwater harvesting, they appear to be modeled predominantly for managing on-site stormwater quality. So meaning lang nun is that kung saan yung nabaksak na ulan, doon din gagamitin ulit for yung naipon na yon. Hindi siya i-redirect sa iba as parang similar dun sa iba nating na-discuss before. And lastly, increased biofilter and wetland usage occurs at the expense of ponds, as they require inefficiently larger surface area than alternative systems with the addition of storage requirements. And then for the conclusion, these are the key findings. The model reproduced similar results compared with what has been proposed by independent consultants, again, which is the IUWM, with minor discrepancies, which could be due to land development restrictions not accounted for. Next one is stakeholder preference in the form of a subjective multi-criteria scoring matrix effectively influence the final options selected by the model. This provides an opportunity for assessing the outcomes of different stakeholder opinions in a real project setting. So that's also another reason why I chose this journal actually, because of the stakeholder preference. Kasi pag naging implemented na siya sa atin, lalo na dito parang maraming investors, maraming kumbaga susulsul sa atin sa mga design na baka pwedeng i-adopt to from one project to another. And ayan. So mas maganda siyang experience kumbaga. Hindi yung parang design lang and then yun na agad yung solution na ibibigay for the future stakeholders. Kumbaga mas marami pang discussion na pwedeng gawin na we have this option A, option B, option C, etc. And lastly, the model demonstrates how multiple water management objectives can be achieved through the interaction of different systems and multiple scales. So yun nga, again, yung sinabi ko kanina na ang WSUD is sensitive literally to the water, like the water supply, sewerage, and stormwater management. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.